Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. Hopefully, this is the second time I'm seeing you or you're seeing me. But thanks for joining us for our part 2 of our Engineer to MBA field trip. So, happy Engineers Week to all of you out there. And we know that many engineers seek an MBA to accelerate their careers or increase leadership and business skills. So, this webinar serves as our contribution so that we may provide resources for anyone who's interested in taking that journey or just seeking information, you're questioning it, you're thinking about it. So hopefully you'll hear from our people today. We have great panelists on who've all been through that journey. So hopefully they can share in their experience and make you feel more confident about approaching the task and really considering this as an option for you. So again, welcome and thanks for joining us. I'm your host. I'm Fanae Croft. I'm the Field Marketing Manager of the Americas region. So I interface with candidates. I go to events all over the country. I give presentations about the GMAT. So it's really important to me that candidates are getting the information and the resources that they need to ultimately be successful. So that's why we're here today. Yesterday, we spoke with current students at MBA programs who have engineering backgrounds. Today, we're going to be speaking with 3 panelists, Allison, Yelani, and Damien, and they all have gone through the process. So they have their engineering background, they sat and did their MBA programs, and now they're out in the workforce and can hopefully share more of their experiences and answer any questions you might have. So a few housekeeping things regarding Q&A. So if you scroll on your screen, somewhere there you may see a Q&A button. If you don't see it, keep scrolling maybe over the icons and you might see it pop up. There, while we're talking, if there are any questions that come up, anything you're more interested about, and pose your question, and then the last 10 minutes of this hangout will address any of your questions, and all of the panelists, they'll be more than willing to share in their experiences and hopefully answer your questions. Secondly, after this series concludes, we're going to give away a $250 exam voucher. So the great thing about this voucher is that it's valid for 5 years. So if you're still in the process of deciding, maybe you're an undergraduate, you can take the test, you can take it and bank it. We've had engineers on who have suggested doing that approach. So be a great opportunity for you to get connected with the test. It's an exam voucher. We'll go from there. So let's jump right in. I'm going to introduce our panelists today. So we have Yelani Naranjo. She attended the Huff Graduate School of Business at the University of Florida. She did the 1-year full-time MBA program, and she graduated in 2005. We also have, Allison on board with us. Allison, she attended the University of Iowa, and she graduated in 2001 with her MBA. She attended for both undergrad and graduate school. Yes, Allison?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, and then we have Damien Journey. He attended undergrad at University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and then he did his MBA at Harvard Business School. He attended the full 2-year program and graduated in 2005. So thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Would you guys mind going around and giving our attendees just a little more information about yourself? Let us know who we're speaking with, where you're from, etc. Yelani, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Yelani Naranjo, and I'm an electrical engineer. Prior to doing the MBA, I was working at Motorola Solutions doing hardware design and testing for mobile phones and government and public safety radios. But I was really interested in moving more from the engineering side of product development to the marketing side, which is what led me to do my MBA. And so after graduating from the University of Florida with my MBA in 2015, so last year, I joined Dell, where I'm now a product manager on the software marketing team. So work closely with cross-functional teams, including engineering, on defining the product roadmap, gathering marketing requirements, and really interfacing with engineering on driving the strategy and innovation for new project initiatives to provide the best customer experience for customers when they first turn on their Dell. So I absolutely love my role, and the MBA was a great way for me to transition from the engineering to the marketing role that I was interested in.
Perfect. Thank you. What about you, Allison?
Yeah, so I studied biomedical engineering at the University of Iowa as an undergrad and was always very interested in healthcare. Um, After graduation, I ended up working for Accenture for a couple of years as a business analyst in the health and public service group. And there I worked with health insurance companies, with state Medicaid programs, that kind of thing, on developing and implementing software and understanding the requirements and interfacing with our developers, just to make sure that those software tools met their needs. I enjoyed that a lot, but also wanted to get a little bit more understanding of marketing and finance and really be able to dig into the business side of hospitals and healthcare organizations. And so that's why I decided to go back and get my MBA. And right now I am a consultant for a small healthcare hospital consulting firm called Kurt Salman in San Francisco.
Great. And Damien?
Great. Well, thanks for having me. Again, Damien Journey is my name. Born and raised in Flint, Michigan, which, as you all probably know, has been in the news quite a bit for some unsavory reasons over the last few months.
Yeah.
I'm a graduate of the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor with an industrial and operations engineering degree. I then actually left and went to work for Dell, where Yolani's working now. I was there for a few years, then moved on to Eli Lilly and Company, where I was involved in process engineering of a various group of drug products, and then engineering management, moved into engineering management there for a few years prior to going back to get my MBA. Post-MBA, I went back to Eli Lilly and Company, ran one of their factories that was making a drug called Cymbalta, which is an antidepressant similar to Prozac.
Okay.
Ran that factory for a number of years, 2 years or so, then left manufacturing and went into the sales organization. I want to get close to the business, and in pharmaceuticals for sure, the closer you are to the doctor and the patient, the closer you are to the real core of the business, not so much so in manufacturing. And so I ran a sales organization there in some Midwest states for about 2 years. Left, went to a small manufacturing company in the security space out here in the Bay Area, and I ran the international sales and marketing organization for about 4 years, opening the company from primarily a domestic U.S. company to a few countries around the world. And currently, I am Vice President of Security Solutions at a company called ShotSpotter, where we deploy acoustic sensors to detect the sound of gunfire in urban environments, as well as campuses, K-12 environments, buildings, etc., such that if a gunshot is ever heard, the police can be notified in a matter of seconds, saving the amount of time it takes for them to arrive on scene to address the threat. And in big cities, the data is really used to drive down the overall gun violence rate in some large and small cities around the U.S. As we know, we have a gun violence problem, and there really wasn't a technology out there that could identify where gunshots were coming from, which would allow police to respond better. And so we kind of filled that void, and I'm working to try to grow that business.
Wow. Okay. Did you know when you were an undergraduate that you ultimately would go to business school?
Not initially. I was literally just trying to graduate University of Michigan for the first 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Until I ran across a professor in a class called Entrepreneurship for Engineers. And this professor actually was a Michigan undergrad who'd gone on to Harvard Business School and had made millions off of a T-shirt business. And I figured if this guy could get rich off of T-shirts, I need to go somewhere that would teach me some of those skills. And that very quickly, as my sophomore year progressed, led me down the path of considering an MBA.
Wow. What about you, Allison? Did you know when you were an undergraduate?
I did not. I knew that I wanted to go to graduate school of some sort, but I wasn't sure what for. I selected biomedical engineering partly because mainly because I was very interested in healthcare and wanted to be well prepared for potentially medical school or physical therapy or any other health career, but also have the option of a really great job after just those 4 years of engineering undergrad. So.
Okay. Yolani, what about you? Like, not necessarily did you know if you were going to go, but why did you go? Why did you decide to ultimately pursue this path?
Yeah, I knew I always wanted to do engineering and business. So originally, as an undergrad, I was thinking about double majoring in engineering and business. But my college advisor recommended that instead I do the engineering undergrad, go and work, get some work experience, and then go back to do the MBA. So that was really the best advice. I knew that engineering would give me a good foundation to understand the technology and how the product worked, but the MBA, the business school, would really help take it a step further by understanding the business needs, the marketing needs, and how to really sell that product and get it in the hands of customers. So I knew it was just a great fit to do both engineering and business.
Okay. Allison, so how did your engineering experience help you stand out as an applicant when you were going to business school?
Um, so I think, although my work at Accenture wasn't necessarily a traditional engineering job, I definitely was using what I had learned in school as an engineer. I'd worked on many different projects with different team members and different clients, and I think my math and my data analysis background really helped give me a leg up as an applicant. In addition, I'd had some leadership opportunities, something that engineering school really started preparing for us for as well. And just those critical thinking and problem-solving skills, I think, and a solid grasp of statistics was also very helpful in terms of going from engineering and into the MBA program.
Okay. What about you, Damien, when you were going to school? Like, what were the skills that helped you really stand out?
Yeah, I think Allison really hit the nail on the head on two fronts. One is the critical thinking, the ability to take very complex problems and break those down into smaller parts to get to an end result. A lot of times in business and business school, the challenges you'll face are things that you may not have dealt with before, so you don't necessarily have an intuition to rely on. What you need to do is take the larger problem and break it into smaller parts. And I think at its core, engineering does that. It teaches you a rigor, intellectual rigor, to attack problems that you may not be familiar with to get to a result that makes good sense on the back end. And I think the other part that really helped was, as Allison pointed out, the leadership opportunities in engineering through team projects and leadership in that vein, but also some campus activities. I was a member of the National Society of Black Engineers. So NSBE provided me a ton of opportunities prior to the point of applying to business school. So I was in student leadership through NSBE for a number of years, and that provided a very unique set of leadership discussions that I could add to an application that I think made me stand out from your classic banker or consultant who may also be applying.
Okay. So you took the GMAT, yes?
I did.
How did you fit studying for the GMAT, like into your busy schedule? You had a lot going on, so how did you make that happen?
Yeah, I just started removing other things, to be honest. The GMAT became primary, so it was work, eat, sleep at some point, but make sure that the GMAT activity was handled. Because at the end of the day, that I felt for me was the one place that I needed to make sure I hammered it out, because I'd already had a set of GPAs coming out of undergrad, so I couldn't affect that. And my application, I couldn't really affect it dramatically as far as my personal experiences. So the one place that I had still time to make a dramatic impact on my application was the GMAT. And so that became a central theme of my life for those period of months. And then once I completed that process, I reconnected with my friends and family, but I was kind of on the ground with the process.
I'm so happy you said that. That's one thing we are working on as an organization. We learned that so many people look at the GMAT exam as like this big, like a barrier to entry. And we want people to look at it as a passport to entry, because it really is the thing that you can use to help your package be more compelling. You can have some control over what that aspect is going to be, whereas the other things, they might be more static. So I'm really glad you said that. Yolani, what's your best GMAT study tip?
I would say just study and get prepared, like Damien was saying. Get a GMAT prep book, find a quiet place to study, and just stay focused on getting through your study plan. So I found it helpful to create a study plan and kind of carve out what chapters I wanted to do every day. That way I knew I would get through the entire book before test day. And I would say definitely take some online practice exams. That way you're familiar with the format of the test, and there's no surprises on the day of the test. So.
Sure. Yeah, we did a session with one of our psychometricians, and they're the people who make and create the exam. And she was saying that from her experience, the best route is to simulate the test conditions. So doing practice questions, mimicking the environment, and just really doing that over and over and over is really going to help you perform strongly on the exam. Allison, what advice do you have for other engineers who are planning to go to business school?
Go for it. Engineers, unfortunately, sometimes have the reputation for not being able to communicate as well, or even potentially work well with other people. And so I think business school really helped me to better understand lots of different types of people and how to communicate more effectively, both in writing and verbally. And I'm still working on it, but feel much more comfortable than I did prior to attending business school. And so I think business school is a great opportunity to just continue your learning, to expand your horizons, to better understand the business side of product development or implementation or whatever you might be working on, just to have a bigger picture, and it definitely was the right fit for me. So
awesome.
Can I jump in on the conversation about GMAT prep? Because I think that's a place that really deserves a little bit more attention. And I say that because I've watched a lot of my friends, since I went through the process, go through the GMAT process in various ways. Mm-hmm. And the people that I've found that are most successful are those that are aware, very clear about who they are. Yeah. So if you're a person who is extremely structured in and of yourself, then I think you can very easily study for this at home with just a book, as Jelani pointed out. I recognized that I was a very easily distracted person, and I would very quickly move into listening to music or watching TV or hanging out as opposed to reading the book. And so it was important for me to take a course, because the investment of the $1,000 was worth the structure to be in a room every week or twice a week for 2 hours to really learn the skills. Because at the end of the day, my thought is, and I would like to know if the panelists agree, that when you're preparing for the GMAT, you're not preparing for the content of the GMAT, you're preparing for the test itself. Because the mathematics are no more complex than calculus. Right. They're not going to trick you with any hard science or math, but fundamentally the way we learn math and even some of the other components of the exam, they don't give you time on the exam to go through that long, slow form process to get to the answer. Being able to quickly identify some of the challenges, pitfalls of a particular question are things that you learn in the book or through the class, and they really help you prepare for the test itself, not for doing basic geometry, which may appear on a problem, but it's not you can't spend the time to do it the way we learned back in school. So those are just some other thoughts that I want to share, because I've seen people who are way smarter than I am terribly on the exam because they just ran out of time. Sure. It's not a matter of smarts, it's a matter of being able to master the skills for the exam itself.
No, it's great that you point that out, and I'll piggyback on two things that you made mention of. That's one thing I always say in presentations I give about understanding and preparing for the exam, is that you want to know yourself. This exam is all about evaluating the way that you reason, the way that you process information. So that's going to be really critical even when it comes to formulating your prep program. You want to know how you best learn and understand information, and then translate that over into how you're studying. So to your point, if you're a person that's really structured, you can do it on your own. Some people need more guide and information. So it's important to understand that about yourself. Secondly, that's true that the exam is, you're expected, on the SATs or ACTs, if you took those in the United States, the content is going to be more difficult on those exams than it will be on the GMAT exam. But when you get to the GMAT exam, there's the expectation that you already understand how to do the problems, etc. Now it's about how well can you reason with that information. If one variable were to change, how is this going to affect everything else? So it's really assessing a different aspect of that information. So it's not about learning content. It's expected that you already have that as a foundation, and then how is assessing how well you can reason within that. So very good points there with regards to the GMAT. So hopefully that was helpful to someone. Let me ask this, Allison, did your school have any activities or clubs, courses that could help people who maybe have an engineering background and they were interested in an MBA?
Yes. Some of the students at the University of Iowa actually combined their MBA with a master's in engineering at the same time. Iowa was very flexible about those types of programs, working with you on an individualized experience. We had a lot of experiential learning and consulting project opportunities. They may have a bit of an engineering flavor depending on the company that you're working with and the project that you're working on. We've also got a business analytics track, so it's kind of as opposed to marketing, strategy, finance, kind of the traditional ones, this business analytics is definitely on the forefront, and a lot of engineers or former engineers that were at Iowa were interested in teaching or understanding how to turn data into meaningful business insights and ultimately value for their employer. And so this is about database systems, data programming, advanced analytics, supply chain management, innovation opportunities, commercializing new technology, just really putting analytics into practice. And I guess the big opportunity that I was able to take advantage of is the Iowa Medical Innovation Group, and it's another experiential learning opportunity through the Entrepreneurial Center at Iowa, where second-year MBA students lead a team comprised of medical students, law students, and undergraduate biomedical engineering students through all phases of medical device or technology development. And so each spring a request was issued to the University of Iowa medical community, so physicians, professors, graduate students to develop projects, and those projects are identified, and over the course of that whole second year, students determine market potential, current competition, and really take that project from the initial phases of the idea through what is the commercial potential for it. So that was a great opportunity where I could apply both my engineering and then my new business skills as well. So.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Yolani, what's your advice to people looking to transition, engineers?
I would say an MBA degree is a great complement to an engineering degree. It makes you a valuable and differentiated candidate for companies and recruiters. Business school in particular will help engineers with the soft skills, just like Allison was mentioning earlier, to develop, the communication, the presentation skills, the teamwork and networking and the leadership skills that are really helpful in, helping, people transition into maybe more of a business marketing kind of role from coming out of engineering. So I would say definitely go for it.
Yeah. And Damien, let me ask you this last question and then we'll throw it to the audience. What was the biggest, how were you stretched most when transitioning from engineering to business? And what was most different about it?
Wow, that's a really interesting question. If you were to ask me that 3 or 4 different times, I'd probably give you 3 or 4 different answers. But I think for me, one of the biggest challenges was adjusting to the language. The business community speaks in a very different language than the engineering community does most times, and understanding what various terms mean, how to interact in a space that may be a bit different than the engineering setting, was something that was at least more foreign to me than I expected. And what I mean by that is there's nothing in accounting that's more than basic mathematics, not a single thing. But yet the way they perform that basic mathematics is very, very different. And the way it's spoken about as part of that conversation is very different than you're having most things related to engineering. And so being able to understand how a particular term is derived from a formulaic perspective and what it might mean in a setting, in a corporate environment, was something that I think stretched me more than I anticipated walking in the door. And once the language is comfortable, I believe that the rest of the process became pretty pretty simple to understand. I tell you, it really opens your mind up. What I notice about myself and a lot of my classmates is even while doing basic things in life, going to the store or shopping at the mall, we would start to use these terms to describe things in the grocery store. So, oh, look at that end cap right there. Well, no one else would describe the end of an aisle at a grocery store as an end cap or as a loss leader product. But those are the sorts of things that become commonplace in a vernacular that's very typical when you spend some time in business. And so I think that was a place where I grew tremendously.
Awesome. I haven't seen any questions come through yet, so you guys must be really hitting all the nails on the head. Let's see. What's your advice? What's your advice for engineers that are looking to transition over into an MBA?
Is this to Damien?
That's to you? Yes.
So my advice is really dive into this. I don't think that moving into an MBA is something that can be done as effectively if it's a side project. I think if you decide you want to do it as Allison and Yolani have done, you really need to make it a priority in your life and really take all that you can from an MBA experience. I certainly recommend, if you have the option, to prioritize a full-time program, because I think there's so much more that you get out of the finance and marketing, the core skill sets. You can learn those things online anywhere in the world today. But I think the real value of the MBA, especially the full-time program, is interaction with colleagues that do things that you would have never dreamt of before, and the lessons you can learn from them as part of interacting with that environment. So the transition becomes easier once you commit to it. I think it becomes a little more challenging if it's one of 5 or 6 other side projects that you're trying to accomplish at the same time.
I see. Okay, we got a little more time and no questions, so I got one, and anybody can jump in on this. What's the one thing you wish you had known before you entered your MBA program? Like in hindsight, what do you wish you would have known that you didn't know? Anybody?
I think I wish I'll just jump in at this moment. I think one of the things I wish I had known is that engineering was more intellectually challenging, but the MBA was far more work. And I was not fully prepared for the deluge of activities that were going to approach me when I walked in the door. And what I mean by that was, at least at Harvard, there was a case method model that is used for all the courses, which means you're reading anywhere from 15 to 40 pages at night per class just to understand what the case material is, and then you have the requisite analysis that goes along with that to be able to defend your position, stake a position and defend it in class in front of 89 other peers and a professor the very next day. So that's 3 classes a day where you have to do that, not to mention all the other social activities that become important in the MBA program. They're not just, let's go to the bar and hang out, but more so, let's go to the bar and network, because 5 years from now, I might want to have a business relationship with the guy who I'm having a beer with today. So all of those activities became much, it was a lot more work than I anticipated, even though the quality of each individual assignment may not have been as challenging as any one problem set in engineering. I just was not prepared for the volume.
I see. Hey, Allison, I got someone who got a shout out for you. They said they got an offer from Tippy College of Business for fall 2016. That's Vincots, so he wanted to let you know. Yeah. I did have a few questions pop there. I know we're almost out of time, but I want to get to at least a couple of them. Someone asked, are you all studying full-time or part-time? You guys have all completed your program, and from what I understand, you all did full-time programs, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody want to take this? What were your considerations for choosing whether you were going to do full-time or part-time? For anyone who went back and forth between the two of them. Did you, or did you all know you were going to do full-time?
Well,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Allison.
I did consider a part-time MBA for a little while, and I guess the more I learned about it, the more I thought it would be very valuable to have that cohort of classmates that you build really strong relationships with and go through the program together over the 2 years. And then also, I was really glad to be able to apply things that I was learning in one class to things I was learning in another class, because there is some overlap naturally, and you can't, it's very hard to learn all of these things in a silo when companies made up of finance, marketing, strategy, accounting, all of these different things have to work together. And so I think for me, doing that full-time MBA and being fully immersed in it was really important, and the main reason why I decided to do it full-time.
Another question. Why did you pick an MBA over another engineering degree? So that's a good one. Yolani?
So I knew that I loved working in tech and product development, but I wanted to move more from an engineering kind of role to a marketing role where I would have more input and decision making as far as the product roadmap planning and really defining what it was that the engineering teams were going to work on for new product development. So that's why the MBA, like Damien was saying, it helped to learn the business vocabulary, gave you the business acumen in terms of the finance skills, the marketing, the leadership skills. So that's why the marketing role, those were just the roles I was interested in, and the MBA was really helpful in helping me land a role as a product manager, which was what I was interested in doing.
Sure. What about you, Damien?
Yeah, I actually considered a master's in engineering as well, and I chose the MBA, even though it required me to go back or go to work for a few years prior to starting a full-time program, for much the same reason as Yolani, is that I really wanted to be in a position to run and or affect in a dramatic way the direction of a business. And with the master's in engineering, I felt like I'd have the ability to do that, but only or more likely only in the vein of an engineering component of an organization. My theory was that business and government are the two things that affect lives most in America today, and I want to have the ability to influence at least one of those through the education that I was receiving. So the MBA seemed like the right choice for me at the time.
Okay. And Allison, this is the last question. It's very specific to you. We have our fellow who is potentially considering Tippy, and he's asking, he says, business analytics, are there any suggestions you have to prepare for the class, like before going to the course? Are there specific courses you should take, etc.?
Sure. I think this is probably important for all business students, but I think, definitely making sure those Excel skills are strong, or taking a refresher if that's something that you haven't had a lot of exposure to recently, and then just kind of overall statistics in general. I think those are, for that Business Analytics Academy specifically, it's pretty data intensive, and so any familiarity you can have with analytics programs I'm trying to remember. I took a few of the classes. We did some jump programming as well, and there are a few other statistical programs. I think they're probably listed on the website, but if you can just have some baseline familiarity, they will teach you these things, but I think just strong Excel and statistics skills are probably the important things to focus on.
Okay. Damien, I got a specific question for you. You mentioned that business school, your challenge from business school was from the large workload you had in prepping for classes. This person would like to know if you still felt intellectually challenged. They enjoy problem sets and problem solving, and are still debating between a master's in engineering or an MBA.
Oh, I absolutely felt intellectually challenged, just in a different way. So what I found about engineering and the workload, the problem sets in particular, was they tended to be very, very deep and lengthy about a singular subject. And the intellectual challenge I found in business oftentimes was taking a variety of problems, or one problem with a variety of components, some of which might have been finance related, some of which might have been accounting, some of which might have been marketing, and trying to solve for the optimal solution without any final clarity. And what I mean by that is, in engineering, there's almost always a singular right answer. And in business, there are almost never singular right answers. And if there are, you don't find out till 10 years later. And so a lot of the intellectual challenge for me was in engaging with classmates who saw the exact same set of data that I did from a completely different angle and came to a totally different solution on the direction that the business should take. And so I found it extremely challenging and intellectually challenging, in fact, because it forced me to see the world through a variety of lenses, whereas in engineering, oftentimes, if you are very successful, you see it through primarily one lens, and that's the lens of the professor that's leading the course, or whatever the formula might have directed you to do. And so I found it to be, in some ways, more intellectually challenging, even though it may not have been as deep in a specific subject as engineering tends to be. Does that make sense? Do you guys agree or disagree with that?
I'd agree, and I think, I mean, the big part for me was realizing I couldn't do all of all of the work ourselves. I mean, as an engineer and just in general, I'm kind of a perfectionist, and so I had to learn how to trust my teammates and learn that they'll get it done, and it may not be exactly the way that I wanted it done, or you know, that I would have done it, but they're smart people too, and there's too much work to be all doing it yourself. So business school really helped me to learn how to work with many different types of people. And so while it wasn't the same type of challenge that engineering was, it was certainly challenging to figure out how to work together to solve the problems like you were mentioning.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. Allison, Yolani, Damien, thanks so much for sharing your experiences. We know that this will help someone as they move forward in their process. We've learned that many who take this road, you're searching online, you're asking friends, you're going to all these different places to find information. So we're hoping that we can develop a hub where people can find information and get the answers they need pushed to them, as opposed to digging for every single aspect. Oh no, one last question someone is asking. Any challenges that international students face during or after an MBA? Just a proactive measure. So I don't know if anyone has any experience or knowledge of this, but if so, please chime in.
Well, I know that I'm not an international student, but I know that at least a third of the incoming class when I was there at Harvard were international students. And so as far as approaching the MBA and being admitted to the MBA programs, I don't think that there are challenges that are unique to international students, except for, I know for students who may not be native English speakers, there's a series of tests that have to be passed to prove your English proficiency. And that, for some people, may be a little bit of a challenge. Once you're in the MBA program, and depending on the type of program, the quality of your comments in a class is very, very important in affecting your overall grade for the course. And so I noticed that some of my international friends did not feel as comfortable debating a point or really getting into the discussion at times. And now that, of course, was an issue they might have dealt with first semester, but by midway through that semester, and certainly second and third and fourth semester, some of those challenges had kind of melted away. So those are just two things I would be mindful of. And then I guess the third thing is for international students who want to work in the United States, there's the visa process to be considered on the back end as far as work visas and being sponsored by a company. So I don't think any of those are reasons why you would not apply to an MBA program, specifically a U.S. MBA program. But I think there are just things to be mindful of as you approach the process.
Thank you. Thank you, Damien. That's all we got. So thanks again for joining us today. Stay tuned to MBA.com. We'll continue to have content throughout the year that's specifically related to engineers. And again, happy Engineers Week. Be on the lookout for follow-up from us. Let us know what topics you might be interested in, and we'll see what we can put together for you. Also, be on the lookout for an email to see if you've won the $250 exam voucher. You'll only get an email if you win, so if you don't, maybe next time. So enjoy your weekend and have a great day.
All right. Take care. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Bye.